James Woolsey in Washington, what does a declaration of war by the United States administration mean to you? As I said to Philip later a moment ago, we thought there had been one already for the last 5 years, at least from Osama bin Laden.
Well, it's complicated. It doesn't mean the same thing that it meant immediately after December 7th of 1941, because on that date we knew who had attacked us. We just had to look at the red rising suns on the wings of the Japanese aircraft. And the problem now is that it's fine for us to declare war, and in a sense I think that would be a good idea. War has certainly been declared on us by someone, but there's debate in this country about just who that someone is. Now, in the last 6 or 7 years of the Clinton administration, I think it was open for the first year or two, the theory developed that all of these terrorist acts are either caused by loose networks of people that just sort of come together somehow, and that was the administration's theory for the World Trade Center bombing in '93, or they are Osama bin Laden, or perhaps some combination. But
this all sounds very vague. You're sounding very vague about this.
Well, for the last 6 or 7 years, there's been very little attention paid in this country, I think, to the possibility, and I think the probability, that some of these terrorist acts may be sponsored by nation states. And for the World Trade Center bombing of '93, and possibly some hand in what happened on September 11th in this country, I think we need to turn our focus to a very hard look at Saddam Hussein. I think he may well have gotten off rather scot-free for the last 8 years, and we need to turn our attention to seeing whether or not there may be a nation state behind an operation as complex as this one was that took place on September 11th.
People are already talking about the failure of human intelligence, though, something that has been downgraded in the CIA, much to the chagrin of many of its officers.
Well, it was sort of downgraded in the late 70s, and then it was upgraded again, and various of us who have been directors of Central Intelligence have fought hard for money for human intelligence, for espionage. It was plussed up, in a sense, at the end of the 90s in order to prepare for Y2K, where they thought there might be a number of terrorist incidents. There were some attempts, and the CIA had a major hand in stopping several of them. And then some of the money went away again.
Some of the money, you've still got $30 billion as an intelligence budget in the States, haven't you?
That certainly is not spent on human intelligence. A tiny share of that is spent on human intelligence.
People are going to start wondering what it is spent on, aren't they?
Well, a large share of it is spent for satellites, which Britain takes advantage of, I might say, as well as the United States, and these are extremely expensive. Some share of it is National Security Agency. Some of it is tactical intelligence for the military. It's certainly not even a major share of that is not human intelligence focused on terrorism. I think that it is important to spend adequate resources, but more importantly, in some ways, is to remove some of the shackles on recruiting spies inside terrorist organizations that were developed over the course of the last 8 years.
Also shackles on those kinds of contacts that CIA operatives are allowed to cultivate? For instance, the requirement that they should all be squeaky clean?
Well, they don't have to be squeaky clean, but in late 1995, I hasten to say after I left the government, the CIA came out with some guidelines in response to a publicity and foreign policy problem down in Guatemala. And they say essentially they want to make it harder, not block, but make it harder to recruit people with violence in their pasts as spies. Well, that may be well and good from a moralistic point of view, but if you can't recruit people with violence in their past, you aren't going to recruit very many people inside terrorist groups. And I think those guidelines need to be looked at. We recommended on a commission I was on last year to do away with them, and I think that would be one step that should be taken right away.
Jim Swire here in London. Are you in any way comforted by this